Well, hello. My name is Heather Foster. I am a part of the ESOL class for TSL 3080. So we had to do a project on a reading strategy for the ESOL students that we could potentially have in our class one day. The strategy name that I chose is called the Think, Pay, or Share. The ideal age for this strategy is around 5 to 6 years old. The strategy can also work for any level of an ESOL student, and it can also work with any subject. So you can have science, language arts, math, reading, art, music, etc., any single subject. It can also work with any age too, but with the research that I conducted, it said the ideal age is for 5 to 6 year olds. There aren't really any materials that are needed for this strategy, so there's pretty much close to none. The only thing that is needed is the student to bring themselves and any type of book that the student is using for any subject. So their math book, their science book, or a fiction or non-fiction book that they are using in language arts. So the resources are pretty much the same for that as well. Pretty much the only resource that is needed is a video possibly for the beginning to teach the class what the Think, Pair, Share strategy actually is. Other than that, excuse me, I'm kind of sick right now, but other than that, no other resources are necessary for this. So after that, the research that supports the use of the strategy and how it will help the ELL language content development and comprehension, with putting together a summary for the 3 resources that I found. To start this off, Think, Pair, Share is to help ELL students along with every other single student. So it's not just for ELL students, it is for every student in the classroom, which is fantastic. So it is to help the entire class along with ELL students to ease into material that may be too complex for them, or if it contains too much information for them. It's just to help kind of slow them down and give them a little bit better of a pace. So Think, Pair, Share helps the students read in multiple different ways. So they can either read the passage by themselves. You as the teacher can read the passage out loud to them if they are struggling with reading it by themselves, or they can read it with a partner as well. So there's 3 different ways that they may start this conduction of the strategy. So with that being said, during the strategy, at some appropriate point during either you reading the text, them reading the text to themselves to make sure that you're going along with it, or them reading it with a partner, you'll also have to look over that as well to make sure that it is an appropriate time. But you were going to ask a question during that appropriate time. So the question can be anything, but it has to be about the text. But you can make it about anything necessarily. So you will then have the students think to themselves about the question that you asked. After a few minutes, they will then pair up with another student if they already had that pair student with them to read together. Keep them with that pair unless they suggest that they want somebody else. Otherwise, if they're not with a pair, then pair them up with the student. Have them sit there with that student and sort of ask for feedback. Like, have each student sit there and give feedback to each other. That's great for the ELL student. and it's great for the non-ELL student if those two are paired together. Excuse me again. Just because when you have two peers together, it sort of helps them better than you and just the student, because two peers can explain it better than one another than necessarily some way that you may explain it. Sometimes teachers can get, brain fart and they can sit there and get stuck on only one way of thinking how to teach another student. So if there's a peer teaching another student how to do it, it may click like that a lot easier for that ELO student or the regular student. Excuse me. So feedback is generally good for ELO students, just because a lot of ELL, ESOL students, they can get tension built up, they can get anxiety, they can sort of feel, like they're afraid to sort of speak their opinion. So when you have that feedback coming back to them, it releases all of that. So when that share part comes up and they are sharing it with the class, they feel a lot more comfortable after getting that peer feedback, and they don't necessarily feel as embarrassed or frightened to sit there and share it to the classroom. So it's a very, very good strategy in my opinion. So like I said, this type of method can work with any type of reading text. So think, pair, share is also good for ELO students because it increases wait time. So if you think about it, and if you've seen any ELO student in your lifetime or teaching career, you can see that they do get that anxiety of when a teacher asks a question, and it takes them a little bit more time to think about it because they're thinking of a way to put their thoughts together. So if you have a teacher asking a question and then you have 20 students in the classroom just shoot their hand up like that, it's going to raise that anxiety in the ELO student, and they're not necessarily going to want to participate. So with the think, pair, share, it gives them that extra time to think to themselves, and then they're meeting up with the partner, and then they're receiving feedback from what their opinion is and how they can critique it with their peer, and then they'll share it to the classroom. So they don't have that built-up anxiety where they feel like they can't share something because all of their thoughts aren't collected at that time. So it gives them time to repeat and practice with their language and with the English language as well. The strategy is also very easy to use. Sorry for the fly. So the strategy is very easy to use. Think, pair, share is also used for a few different principles of ESOL, so the ESOL principles together. The strategy is used for principles 1, 3, 5, and 7 according to my research. So it's used for principle 1 because it helps the ELL student build on their prior knowledge. It also helps you, as the teacher, learn about that ELO student's background, so their school and their language background and sort of their home background, so you can feel where they're coming from, so you can relate to them more. And if you get that student that their background sort of, you can pair them up with another student that is sort of similar to them so that they can feel even more comfortable when they're paired up with that student. Excuse me. For principle 3, the strategy helps with this outcome because, sorry about that, the strategy helps with the outcome for all of the students. So like I said previously, it's not just for ELO students, it is for every single student. And when you can include every single student, that makes your lesson a million times easier. Because you don't have to sit there and single out that one student. You can sit there and include every single student and make them all feel like they're one big family and like they're a part of, something big. So for Principle 5, the strategy helps provide multiple opportunities for authentic language use with focus on students using academic language. So with that being said, this gives many opportunities, not just for one language, but for multiple different languages. So you want to focus on their academic language, but using our language along with theirs. And then for Principle 7, it includes opportunities for monitoring and self-evaluation. So you as the teacher, not necessarily your classroom. So you can monitor the way that you were using this strategy with your lesson, and you can self-evaluate. So is this working for you? Is this working for the classroom? Do you feel as if you were progressing as a teacher and also as a person necessarily while you were using this strategy? So there are 4 steps to the strategy. The first one is ask a thought-provoking question of your class. So if you have your classroom and say we're speaking of kangaroos. So my thought-provoking question is, why do kangaroos have their children held in their pouches? Why do you as a class and an individual think that kangaroos hold their children in their pouch? So during this time, the room will be silent for about a minute while everybody's thinking about it. And at this time, the ELO students will be putting together language and content concepts. So next, I will instruct the students. So now, class, you will then turn to the person beside you. You will gather your thoughts together, and you will speak about your thoughts and opinions about the question that I asked, and talk about it to the person next to you. So now the ELO student has an opportunity to offer their idea in a comfortable setting. So perhaps there's grammatic errors that peer can help them, or you can get more information from that partner. So that partner may be thinking of something that you're not thinking of, which is a great thing for having a partner or a group. So then, after you do that, you turn to your class as the teacher and you say something of this sort. As I was walking around, I heard a lot of great ideas, and now we're going to share as a class. So who would like to share their thoughts and what you as partners spoke about? At this point, the students will offer an answer, and they will have had time to work together the concepts with their partner and feel like they're offering that idea on their own. So either as a pair or on their own, which may not be so intimidating if they do it as a pair. If they don't feel comfortable talking, they can have their partner sort of start it off, and then maybe you can have the ELO student finish that off. So pretty much to wrap this up, Think Pair Share is fantastic. I can't wait to use this with my classroom one day. It seems very fun, and I am a long-term sub right now, so I actually might use this with a couple of my students. One of my students in my class actually just graduated last year from the ELL requirements, so he's no longer an ELL student, but he does have some trouble here and there, so I feel like this would be a fantastic strategy for me to use with my classroom now and with my classroom in the future. Thank you.